If you run a clothing brand, listen up, because there's one specific time of year that can absolutely wreck and cause havoc for your brand, cause delays in your production timelines, the quality of your garments being reduced, and just so much stress as a brand owner, and essentially leave you without stock when you might be needing it most. And barely anyone plans for this properly, and this is Chinese New Year. If you don't understand what this is, how it works, and you're not planning for it already, that's an entire quarter gone. So listen up, I'm gonna break down what it is, how to plan for it effectively, and set yourself up in the best possible situation so this doesn't affect you negatively. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to prepare, what questions to ask, and how to set up your drops for the following year, being 2026, so that way you don't have as many potential headaches as you could. So let's do it. So why it matters, and here's the thing. Most brand owners, when they're starting out, they think small, they're focusing on their, their first sample or their next sample, and that's basically it. But what they don't actually understand is the production process, and they don't realize the entire manufacturing game changes when it comes to Chinese New Year and the time it hits. The manufacturing chain goes to a fucking crawl during the months of January to March, and you need to know this and why this happens. If you don't plan ahead, you're basically cooked, you'll be stuck waiting, and for the remainder of the year be playing a catch-up game that you're probably never gonna win. This means no stock, no updates, no production, nothing. Literally everything stops. So basically what I wanna break down, it's not just a matter of knowing, what it is, but actually making sure as a clothing brand owner, you're timing absolutely everything around it perfectly so you minimize the potential delays that can be possible. And the reason for doing this is the best brands in the world know their key dates, and they work backwards and make a solution that works no matter what is going on around them. A quick explanation of Chinese New Year, or sometimes it's called Lunar New Year, is the biggest national holiday in China, and every single person celebrates it. It usually falls between the end of Jan to mid-Feb, depending on the calendar year. And the important thing when you're starting your brand to know is manufacturing stops for anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks during this holiday and when it's happening. Sometimes this can be even longer depending on which factory you're working with. So basically it's a bit of a head fuck, and it can cause some serious stress. This includes everything. Garment factories, dye houses, whatever it is, everyone goes on holiday. It's as simple as when it hits that date, they stop exactly what they're doing and they go and, enjoy their holiday, which is super well deserved. And it's also important to remember a lot of these people, travel back to their hometowns and not their place of work. So even, when it comes time to reopening, not everyone's gonna be back right away. So therefore the full capacity that it potentially was working at, being the factories, might not be the exact same. Meaning you can't just wait it out. So you have to have a game plan and strategize to therefore, plan around it. The risk timeline you're facing. So the reason why I want to say this is if you're aiming to release during March, April, May, you need to know exactly what those garments are and have these samples ready to go and ordered before the new, before this holiday even takes place. So that means you have to be operating pretty fucking far in advance. So you need to know these key dates, plan backwards, and plan accordingly. So let's say, for example, you want to be releasing during March 15th. That means you potentially might need this shipped to you during January, because in Feb, everyone's off on holidays and there's no communication or no workers to therefore put this production and packing in time for you to receive by March. So that shows how far in advance you need to be operating at, which means sampling needs to be done during December, November, potentially depending on how many sample runs it is. So yeah, there's a high likelihood for those that are watching this, you're not far ahead enough when it comes to the sampling, process and nailing down what your product and release calendar is. But that's okay. It's important to know and kind of understand this and kind of just work in a way that works for your brand. What do you need to do? How do you plan for this so therefore these dates don't cook you and your timelines? So there's kind of 5 critical questions that I think that you should be asking your manufacturer, whether you're starting to work with them, whether you've had a long-term relationship with them, so that way you can put these key dates, put it into your CRM, put them into Notion, and you and your team are aware of these so you can work around it. Here's a bit of a checklist and the questions that I would be asking. What exactly are your Chinese New Year exact dates when your team for this specific factory goes on holiday? It's important to note that these dates can kind of vary by factory, so don't guess. And if you're working with, multiple factories, it's likely that it's not going to fall on the same day. So you want to be asking this to all of them. Number 2, what is the last cutoff date for bulk orders to be ordered to therefore be able to be completed production and shipped before they all go on holiday? Usually this is during December because it might take 30 days for manufacturing and a few days to pack. So therefore it's still shipped out before Feb 1st. Maybe that's when they go on holiday. So that way it's shipped to you by late January, and depending on if it's air freight or sea shipped, it will arrive in 7 to 30 days. Next thing to ask is, what's the final cutoff date for samples to be ordered as well? And the reason for this is, if you're looking to, release in March, if you're looking to release in April and May and June, you need to have these samples, or at least the first round of these samples, kind of already underway and flowing. So that way you're going to get close to a PPS sample that you're 100% happy with before you go into bulk order production. And the reason for this is so many people, don't put enough emphasis and focus on this, and then they realize, fuck, I'm 2-3 months behind where I thought I would be. And that's when they kind of rush to a bulk order and they're releasing something they're not happy with. And therefore you lose trust with your customers and your products are not as good as you wanted it to be. And then it just kind of goes on this downward spiral for the remainder of the year because you're chasing your ass for not being planned enough during this holiday period when you're manufacturing overseas. So make sure you're asking for those key cutoffs for the bulk orders and samples and really hustling your way. Based on that, you're probably going to look to prioritize that sampling and product development process even more than normal during these kind of cutoff dates between you and your team. Ask, are they still, the person you're working with going to be able to communicate, whether that's through email, WeChat, WhatsApp, or Alibaba, depending on where you're currently communicating. There's times where they will, be able to respond potentially a few days a week and stuff. So just make sure that you're not left in the dark, and therefore you're not stressing if they're not answering because they've kind of already mentioned to you they won't be able to, chat during this time. So just ask if they're going to be able to, chat and communicate, and, that'll ease your mind a lot going forward. So yeah. And again, the next one is, once double check when those cutoff dates is and when they're returning back to work and when they're going to be fully operational again after Chinese New Year. So those are the core 5 questions I would kind of be asking, and ask those to all of your manufacturers so you and your team are 100% clear on what kind of work needs to be prioritized at that given point in time. So what should you be doing in this time? As a brand owner, you'll realize that a lot of your day is a matter of going back and forth with your manufacturers, and you're probably texting them more than your partner and your friends and family. It's actually wild. But Chinese New Year shouldn't be a time for downtime. It should be used as an opportunity, potentially working on things you just haven't had time to be working on in prior months. So here's, a few things that I think you could focus on. Overall brand and product strategy. How is this going? Make sure that you're having a look at what worked well, what hasn't, and figure out your kind of brand direction, moving forward for that next calendar year. Campaign planning. Use this window to lock in, storytelling of what your next marketing campaigns are, your shoot dates, your mood boards, your lookbooks, and making sure, your team is kind of being assembled in the background for these, future bulk orders that you're going to be doing straight after Chinese New Year. Have a look as the, brand owner and, business owner at your infrastructure setups. How is your systems? How are the workflows? How's your managing going when it comes to the team environment? Is everything running as smoothly as possible? If it's not, and there's a few headaches and a few chinks where you think you could be operating more effectively and being more productive, this is a really good opportunity for you to take some time to have a look at all these things. And this is also more downtime, so I would focus on creative sprints. Really give yourself some time in your best work environment, wherever that is, pen and paper, go down the beach. This is time that you can be working on the business and the business direction instead of in the business. So have a look at your long-term goals and where you want to get to, what legacy you're looking to create, and plan how you're going to get there as well. It's important to note that because you can't communicate with manufacturers, smart brands aren't slowing their work process down, they're just focusing on other things during this time. So it's really important to remember that planning for Chinese New Year isn't optional, 100% critical for you to plan this, so therefore you can operate effectively for the remainder of the year as a brand owner. If you choose to ignore this, you're just going to be left with all the other hundreds of brands that choose to not plan for Feb and March and get delayed every single year. If you plan for this effectively, you'll get better service from your manufacturer, secure production slots, and have overall brand clarity when it comes to the next 6 months and what you're looking to create. So literally, I don't care what time of the year this gets released in, just take 20 minutes to ask your manufacturers those 5 key questions right now, because the earlier you prepare, the smoother it's going to be for you and the team, during this period. So hopefully this helped. I saw that there was really no videos about this online when it came to specifically clothing production, so I just wanted to, put that out there, because unless you've been through it and you've been a part of brand owning for a few years now, no one really tells you about this, and it can really fuck you up in the long run. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover, and bye.